This is Capital Games. I'm the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Zero. Wait a minute. Didn't we just do this? Weren't we just here? Didn't we?
Yeah.
Didn't we just do this, Zero? Are we at it again? Oh my God, we're becoming content creators. What's gone on? What's happened?
I know it's quite strange, but at the same right, you were a bit under the weather on Monday,
That's
so
true.
I get it.
So it's my fault. Got it. Thank you, Zero. Anyway, yep, we're back with another episode of Capital Games, and today we're going to talk about some news that came out around, was it late Tuesday or was it late Monday?
Want to say it was maybe early Tuesday.
Early Tuesday? Okay.
Yeah,
So I was in between. Okay, that works, I guess. So basically, what happened is that Microsoft went ahead and announced that they will not be in E3 2023. Now, they said that while saying they will be in Los Angeles during the week of E3, but they're going to have their own live showcase in the Microsoft Theater in Los Angeles.
And I mean, it's kind of one of those things. It's like, okay, just Microsoft plans to do their own thing. Okay. They've been kind of doing that since this COVID pandemic thing started. So, sounds reasonably normal.
Right. So this essentially means that since Microsoft is not going to be at E3, they're not going to be on the show floor. And it also is looking like both Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft as well are all skipping E3. They're not only not gonna have any kind of live showcase, they're also not gonna be on the floor itself. So that's all three major publishers or major console manufacturers are not attending E3 officially. That being said, we just said Microsoft is going to have a showcase that's going to be in the area. So they're going to have that. I think they're going to have it off to the side from where E3 is. Nintendo, except for last year, usually has something of a digital event that happens around that time as well. So that might happen. It may not. They may decide not to do it again. And Sony, for the past, what has it been now, 4 years, have opted to not get into E3, which I think they were the first of the major console manufacturers to do that. And they haven't been to E3 since. I think they may have had floor space, but the floor space has been shrinking ever so slightly until the pandemic happened, and then no one came. So I guess the question that we have right now is, what does this mean for E3 in 2023? I mean, we don't know much about what the floor is going to be like right now. It is still February. We're just starting February. So there's still time for Reedpop and the ESA to come up with something that not only will bring the publishers in, but because this is also something they're selling tickets to, that people will want to attend and check out. What are your thoughts of where the E3 is standing right now?
It's interesting because I think for the last couple of years, just especially with the pandemic and everything, they've had troubles selling booth space. And as we know, just in the past, booth space has always been sort of kind of like a prestige thing, that the ESA has often given discounted pricing for setting up a booth if your company has been there for quite a long time. And Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft have been major players in having a booth presence and everything. So it's one of those things that's kind of interesting to see that, just here we have just three prestige labels choosing not to attend E3 at all. Honestly, it'll be interesting to see, because I think Jeff Keighley has announced as usual, hey, I'll be doing another Summer Games Fest sort of event, and those usually take off pretty well, especially over the last few years. And I think really the big thing that's helped out with stuff like Summer Games Fest has been the fact that you can play demos of the games that are being showcased. Whereas E3, when it recently opened up to the public, it's been just a complete shit show, just trying to get yourself in the door, because it's either the tickets have been expensive, the lines are just massive, and they're just not set up for public attendance. And it's just one of those things that is kind of on the interesting side to see how things will pan out, but I think I'm just more curious on who's actually attending. And unfortunately, you mentioned it doesn't seem like there's actually an open list of who's actually going to be there.
Right. Now, this could be because they don't announce it until a little bit later, but in this case, I would think that the ESA would probably want to have some kind of list out there of someone, of who is going to be there, to at least garner traffic for ticket sales at this point. Because it's looking like right now, since the big three are not going to be there, that automatically, like, the titles that, let's say, people will get excited by are probably not going to show up. So we're looking at stuff from Microsoft, like Starfield, for example. Like, let's say if Starfield was going to be at the convention center in LA, it's going to be on Xbox's thing, so that's not going to be at E3. Then you have Sony, let's say the factions multiplayer thing for Last of Us. If Sony is going to do something, they're going to do it outside of E3. Nintendo, the same thing. If they want the new Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, if they want to show that off at E3 time, they're going to have their own separate thing. So that's automatically three big types of publishers that are not going to be at E3 that would have people garner more sales. So then what do you have now at this point? Are we now relying on third-party companies to actually bear the weight and the responsibility of the ESA and E3 to make E3 worth getting sales and getting tickets for and to check out those games? I mean, let's go over some of the big publishers right now. I'm looking at Wikipedia, the trusted source of Wikipedia, when it comes to sales numbers and revenue that they've made, and I have it on major publishers right now. Let's go over a few of these, and let's ask ourselves: do we really see them going to E3? I'm going to start with Tencent.
Tencent, I think, will easily be there because they've been trying to grow their presence and they've got their fingers in multiple pies at this point. So for them not to have a presence would be a little bit unusual at this point.
I kind of agree. Same thing with NetEase. I think NetEase is another one where we can see them doing that, but then are they bringing console games or are they going to bring mostly their mobile games? That might be the weird transition here, is that a lot of these companies that might come will bring a bunch of mobile games with them, which would not be good for ESA.
NetEase, that one's a bit hard to say, especially since they had a little spat between them and Blizzard, with Blizzard revoking the license that they had for all of their games that they were running in China. So World of Warcraft, Heroes of the Storm, Overwatch, etc. So that one, NetEase, I would say, is a bit of a coin toss right now.
Okay. I'm going to lump in Activision, Blizzard, and EA because they both have conventions that if they wanted to announce something big, they would do it at those conventions. And on top of that, with Activision Blizzard, everything that's going on with the buyout for Microsoft, they may want to skip this altogether. So I think Activision is definitely not going to be there. EA hasn't been there in a long time. They would usually have their own live stream and their own convention style thing that they would have. But they also, before the pandemic, I don't think had one as well around that time. So I do not expect that either of those guys to be at E3.
As far as major publishers like EA, Activision, Blizzard, and Bethesda, Bethesda I would lump in with Microsoft. They'll probably do their own little thing. EA and Activision, I could probably see them maybe doing their own presentations, or maybe being a major participant in Summer Games Fest, and maybe maintain like a very threadbare booth over in E3 Convention Hall for both press and the public.
Okay. Take-Two Interactive. I can see them possibly coming if Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be formally announced. But that's also a game that you don't need E3 for. If they announce it beforehand and they say, oh, and we're going to have it at E3, then yes, I can see that. And then you're going to have a lot of people who will want to be there for that specifically. But if they don't announce it beforehand, I can see them skipping as well.
That one I can agree with as well too. Just there is most certainly a potential of them just if they don't have any big waves to announce regarding Grand Theft Auto 6, yeah, they may just say, oh yeah, we've got a small booth presence over at the E3 hall, but yeah, we're not doing anything big, so whatever. If it's something big, like they've got a huge announcement, maybe they shift that over to Summer Games Fest.
That is true, and that's something we haven't discussed yet. That Summer Games Fest is a thing now. I'll lump these two together, Bandai Namco and Square Enix.
If Square Enix follows the pattern that they've been doing for the last couple of years due to the pandemic, then I expect them to do yet another digital presentation again.
I agree with that end, unless they have a big thing they want to announce, or if they want to show off, I don't know, maybe they would want to show off the second Final Fantasy VII Remake game. Then again, they could just do that digitally and still be pretty good there. Bandai Namco is something that I think that would rather attach itself to like the Microsoft or Sony presentation. So I don't see them being there either. I think Square Enix maybe, but Bandai Namco, no, on that end. Do Nexon and Netmarble. I'm going to say no on both ends. I don't think that these are very important when it comes to E3.
Yeah, Netmarble, I definitely don't see them attending either. I know Nexon is in an interesting position because they just released their free-to-play kart racer game. I think it's called Kart Racer Drift,
yes.
And it's a free-to-play sort of Mario Kart game with a heavy focus on drifting and everything. I think it just came to consoles as of this week.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they do something for Summer Games Fest, like a promo saying, hey, come check out our game. We're giving away, I don't know, 100 free tickets for to do summoning or something, or to get to participate in the gacha to get free parts or something. I don't know.
But if all they're going to do is advertise their game, I don't see a reason why they would want to have booth space. So on that note, I would say no. I would say no on both of them. Like, I don't think either of them will be there to get booth space. Here's a good one, Ubisoft. With the problems that they've been having, I do not see them being there. Unless God forbid Skull and Bones gets delayed yet again. Where is Skull and Bones now? Is it delayed until, or is there even a date to where it's delayed to?
I can't remember offhand if they've announced a specific date, but yeah, just I think for the sake of cheapness, they probably are just going to do a digital presentation and go, hey, just here's all the cool stuff we're working on. Maybe not have kind of like their own flashy presentation like they've had for the last couple years, where they had like dancers in a band and all this other junk. But yeah, just maybe a much more reserved sort of presentation instead this time around.
Yeah, I mean, they just had a big presentation a few months ago regarding what they were having out for the next year and with Assassin's Creed and its future. So I don't see them being there either. I don't even see them having a presentation. This is easy. Konami. No. No.
Yeah, Konami's been awfully quiet, unfortunately, but I know recently on one of their financial reports, they said that they are looking to get back into doing game stuff because game stuff kept them alive during the pandemic. So there's that, but I don't think they really have any other major projects going on. And by the time E3 and Summer Games Fest hit, the expansion for Dead Cells with the Castlevania collab will already be out for several months. So it's not like they can go, hey, by the way, did you guys remember that we did this Dead Cells expansion thing?
Yeah, unless they have big announcements for their main game licenses like Metal Gear, Castlevania, Contra, I don't see them being there either. Sega, I can kind of see Sega being there to an extent. Unless they have no big announcements, but I can see them showing off the new Like a Dragon and the Like a Dragon spinoff that they are developing. Not Ishin, the one that they announced during that live stream. And if they're going to announce a new Persona, then yes, I think that. But it has to be a big game. It can't be like we're having all these mid-tier games coming out. Like, if it's a big game, then yes. Otherwise, no. But I'm gonna say yes on that.
Yeah, Sega's kind of a gimme at this point, mostly because of the fact that just know that they've sort of gotten some renewed zeal on, hey, we got to really show off that we've got stuff in the oven, and we need to show off that we're interested in the Western gaming space and things like that. So, yeah, in my mind, I see them definitely being on the show floor, just trying to show some stuff off and try to generate some interest and everything on some of the new projects. I personally would love to see more info about the game featuring Kiryu. I think it was the one that was titled "The Man Who Erased His Name."
Yeah.
Mostly because the premise of him just working for yet another Yakuza group, but they're masquerading as a Buddhist temple sect, is a really interesting story concept to me. So I would love to see more info about that, but yeah, we'll just have to see if that one's talked about at that event. I know a couple months ago they did announce, hey, we are working on Persona 6. No, we don't have anything to announce. Okay. So just that's all we have to tell, and we will disclose some more information when we get closer to something more substantial, was kind of what they left it at. Okay. So I think that's all I can think of on the Persona front, unless they've got some sort of side game for Persona 5, like a dancing game or something. Then maybe we might see some sort of side game for Persona, but I'm not so sure. I am quite curious about if there may be an announcement for Shin Megami Tensei 5, because there have been rumors that it's supposed to be coming out to PC, and I know there have been people just kind of chomping at the bit, going, come on, Atlas, just tell us when. I will throw down my wallet and I will buy Shin Megami Tensei 5 on PC, because I know some people have griped and mentioned that the Switch version has some lag problems, and as a person who owns a copy of that game, I can confirm that. So there's definitely no sugarcoating that one.
And that'll be a great game to have on PC. Sega also has had some big games come out recently. The new Sonic game just came out, so they would have to have something big in the pipeline that they would want to release, be on the show floor at E3. So in that case, like, if they have something big, I think they're gonna be there. Otherwise, maybe not. But I'm gonna etch that into yes, they're gonna be there. MiHoYo. Did they announce Zen whatever that game is?
Zenless Zone Zero?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Could they be showing that off?
Yes. Then there's also I want to say it was a
Star something.
There was a Honkai Impact related game.
Honkai Star Rail?
Yes, Honkai Star Rail. So there's that. And then, of course, more discussion on Genshin Impact, new characters, new zones, maybe some sort of new feature that they're holding close to the chest or something. So
do you think that's booth space, or do you think that, like...
Easily booth space, especially if they have console builds of both Honkai Star Rail and Zenless Zone Zero.
Okay. Capcom.
Oh yeah, that's an easy one. They will probably have boot space, probably to do some additional promotion of the Resident Evil 4 remake, and maybe whatever Monster Hunter projects that they've got in the pipeline or something.
Well, wait a minute. Resident Evil 4 remake is coming next month.
April.
Right? April.
No, April.
No, March 24th.
Oh, I stand corrected.
Yeah.
But
unless they delay the game, but why would they show that game off 3 months after its release? I mean, I don't see that being really a great idea. And then on that month, there's also going to be Street Fighter 6. So
yeah, Street Fighter 6, that's a gimme.
But what else do they have to announce at that point? I mean, are you going to really be there and showing off old games? In that case, that's a waste of space.
Well, the reason I mention Resident Evil is they may try to do the same thing that they did with Resident Evil Village, which was a few months after the release of Village, they did the DLC announcement. Okay. So maybe they have a preview build of whatever DLC is coming to Resident Evil 4 Remake. Okay. At least that's my take on it.
I think they'll have a digital presentation and that's it. I don't think they'll have booth space. Warner Brothers Interactive. I'm going to say yes for one reason. There has been so much talk about a new Mortal Kombat. And Ed Boon has gone on and said, oh, we're not going to be here. We're not going to be at the Game Awards. Like, people already know they're expecting that announcement at some point. And this would be the time to do that. Unless they wait for... what is the tournament? EVO?
Yeah.
EVO's in July, right?
EVO's anywhere from July to early August.
Okay.
It just kind of depends on circumstances.
Mortal Kombat is a game where if it's announced, it's going to get non-fighting game fans excited. So I think if they're going to be there, it's to announce Mortal Kombat. Other than that,
yeah.
I'm going to say yes on Warner Brothers because I think they will announce Mortal Kombat. But other than that, if they go on and say, oh, we're not announcing Mortal Kombat at E3 this year, then at that point, Warner's not going to be there. But I think they will be there.
Warner, I think, will likely be there because they could also be doing some hype driving stuff for multiverses. If anyone's still playing that anymore.
I think a lot of people still are playing that.
I know the population dropped pretty hard, but I could see them doing, maybe some sort of major announcement at EVO or something like that. Maybe a major addition to the character roster. I just don't see them kind of like leaving that piece of real estate completely free and open.
Okay, and then the last major publisher that I have here listed, Embracer Group. I think Embracer Group is going to have a stream, but unless they have big announcements, you know what? I'll on second thought, yes, they will be there. They made announcements with THQ Nordic this past year that are being developed, like games like Recreation, Gothic Remake, things like that. I think they'll be there. I think they'll have a big presence there, just to have a splash. Just be like, we're here and we have all this booth space and see all of our games. I think they'll be there. It may be the only year they'll be there, but I think they'll be there.
That's probably a plausible guess as well from me too, because just THQ has definitely made some big announcements. If Space Marine 2 has been delayed, then maybe they have some of the booth space allocated to show off Space Marine 2 and whatever the new development build is or something on the E3 floor.
Okay. Now, of the major publishers, here is what we both think might be there. Tencent, NetEase, Take-Two, Square Enix, Sega, MiHoYo, Capcom, Warner Brothers, Embracer. If I am somebody who wants to buy tickets to E3, does that lineup excite me?
I think if you're maybe a fan of one or two of those studios and you've got the means, then sure, maybe that's exciting enough. But yeah, just that still seems like a very expensive proposition.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, let's say, here's my thing. Let's say they do announce Mortal Kombat. You can go to EVO. And then if you're really a fighting game fan, you're going to go to EVO and try that game out. So in that case, I'd say no. I don't think Capcom is going to have much there. So if you're a Capcom fan and you're waiting for new announcements, you're probably already playing Resident Evil 4 or Street Fighter 6. So I'm going to say no on that. I don't know of anybody who's a fan of Embracer Group right now. So That is a no. MiHoYo. Okay, let's say you really are interested in Zenless Zen Zero or Honkai Star Rail. Are you really going to spend money to try out a build of that? I don't think they're that big of fans of MiHoYo products that are that slavish to it. Well, unless they really like waifus.
Yeah, I mean, MiHoYo's husbando and waifu game is very, very strong. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Sega, like we mentioned, they may very well be there, but do they have any big products that can get people excited? I don't see somebody spending $500 on a ticket to go see the new Yakuza game, or Like a Dragon game. I'm sorry. So that's another one. Unless Take-Two is announcing GTA 6 and they're showing it off on the floor, that's another one. But they would have to announce before E3 that GTA 6 is official and that they're going to show it off at E3. And that leaves us with Tencent, NetEase, and Square Enix. I'm looking at this, and if I'm somebody who wants to go to E3 because they remember the yesteryear's time of, I get to try all these new games, there's nothing there that I'm thinking that will excite me. I mean, are they going to show a build of Final Fantasy Remake Part 2? I mean, it's the same thing as Final Fantasy Remake Part 1. I don't see how that's going to excite me. I'm just going to wait for that game. Final Fantasy 16, maybe? But that's a month away. If I'm a little patient, I'll just buy the game. Well, that's not even a month away. That's that month. It's that week, isn't it? Yeah. So that's another one. So now we're left with Tencent and NetEase. Who in the States are excited about Tencent and NetEase?
Yeah, that's a bit of a tough sell.
Yeah.
Especially since not all people are familiar with what Tencent does. So right. Yeah, I don't really see, just a bunch of people going, oh yeah, Tencent, I know who those guys are. Okay, so E3 tickets in 2020 before they canceled it were $200. I am going to say that the price is probably going to be $300, and even then, from what we've gone through, not worth it, at all. I do not think they're worth it. Yeah, that's a pretty spicy meatball to swallow.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking at what could be there, and if that's it, if that's what we're looking forward to, at that point, don't go to I think it's not worth it. And then on top of that, if you want to check out what Xbox has got to do, one, you may not have the access. They may not allow you in. And two, I'm going to bet money they're going to charge tickets. What are you going to do then? You're going to spend $300 at E3, maybe another $100 at Xbox, and maybe if Nintendo's doing something, another $100 at Nintendo? I'm like, what are you going to do at that point? What I'm starting to see here is that unless E3 does something really interesting, I don't think there is going to be an E3 in 2024.
Yeah, especially with the last couple years, E3 was just kind of a loss on money. So, yeah, if it continues to be a post losses and everything, I could see Reedpop going, yeah, I know typically we run this thing as a press event only, but we're just looking at it now, and it's just simply not worth it. And then they just kind of pull the plug on it.
And then we will get into it now. When it comes to E3, Summer Games Fest is now eating some of that share space. So we have Keighley stuff in there as well. And on top of that, the Game Awards takes away a lot of what could have been waited on for E3 as well. So some of those announcements, people are going to wait and say, well, I can wait for the Game Awards for that. It's coming to a point where I think E3, like I said, I think E3 is done after next year. I think or after this year, unless they do something drastically different. Now, I would be sad by this because I think at this point, it would be a bad idea for the industry to not have a specific set of time where they all announce big stuff in a week. What made E3 fascinating is not just the rapid fire announcements, but this is the one time where the industry would get a big amount of mainstream press that isn't entirely negative when it comes to all the new games that are coming out. It would be foolish for the industry to say, oh, we don't need E3 anymore. We'll just have our own live streams. That is a bad move for companies like, I don't know, Ubisoft, Embracer Group, Tencent, or Take-Two, Sega. Like, not everybody is going to stay current on what these companies are doing. They'll stay current on Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo, and they may for maybe Capcom or like something that has a very dedicated audience. But if you don't have that dedicated audience, no one's going to care when you have a new Ubisoft Forward, unless it is in the gaming press constantly. Oh, this is coming in 2 weeks. Like, no one's going to care. So if the entire gaming industry decides we don't need E3 anymore, so we don't need to do this whole weekly thing anymore, I think that will be to their detriment to a certain extent.
I definitely agree with the point you mentioned that, just not everyone is kind of a video game industry nerd. Not everyone pays attention to just, oh my God, did you hear, this one thing was announced at E3. This is like the most exciting announcement on the planet. Not everyone's into that kind of culture. And E3 kind of helped, I guess, make it a little bit more accessible for people to get into like the gaming news space. Because at that point it was just like, oh, we're company so and so with reporters on the ground. E3 is happening, but just this major brand is getting its newest sequel, and it's gonna be big, it's gonna be expansive, and just they kind of break down the hype to normal people to get them interested as well too. Mm-hmm. And when E3 vanishes, sure, there might be Summer Games Fest, but at the same time, Summer Games Fest is kind of for the hardened gamer who's really up on the gaming news cycles,
right,
and who's paying attention to all the new releases or to just some of the excitement that's going on with stuff like, I don't know, just, hey, we've got this game that we just announced, and oh, P.S., you can download the demo build on Steam. That's not really going to be in the interest of most people, and most people aren't going to want to really get into the nitty-gritty with some sort of like very hacky alpha or beta build on Steam, or they may not understand why there's excitement over it. Whereas just if you had, just normal reporters going, hey, we got to try out this super cool beta build and it's really, really something, probably get some people excited over it, but it would at least, bring the excitement to the mainstream. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm definitely with you that while E3 is increasingly showing that it's no longer needed, it would still definitely be a loss for the industry to just have the event go away as well too.
Like, if you need to change up what E3 is, that's great, and they probably should at this point. But for the industry to collectively say, we don't need that, we have our own live streams, like it's just not going to work on their end. And then what you're then doing is leaving the power to what gets announced and what gets the mind share to the three major console manufacturers. And that's all the options you have. So then you're going to have these three different places monopolize that mind space where you have to pay gobs of money to get noticed on those things. So if you are like, well, for example, if that were to happen now, would something like Scribblenauts get the kind of mind share that it did way back in the early 2010s? I don't think
God,
so. No, I don't think so. And since it was made by a small company, like they would have a really hard time like paying the cash that Microsoft or any of those places would want in order to get that kind of recognition, because there are companies that will pay a lot of money to get into those streams, and for good reason. When you forfeit that, like let's say you're Ubisoft, when you forfeit that and your Ubisoft forwards aren't bringing in the type of people because you haven't made a good game in 3 years, you're kind of fucked after that. To give up E3 and to say, oh, we don't need this, it's over now, we just have our own thing, you might be saying that now when you're in a good spot. But what happens when things start going downhill? You're going to want to have this third-party meeting space where everybody can jump in, and then if you show very well there, then you can get enough attention. You need something without barriers at that point. And E3 has its own barriers, sure, but it's not as big as going through the three main console manufacturers. I think that if they go on and say, oh, we don't need it, whatever, it's going to be to the industry's detriment at that point. Hopefully they don't do that and they start realizing that they kind of need something like E3 to happen. And maybe Summer Games Fest becomes that to a certain extent, which, hey, you know, good for Keighley, I guess. It would just be very foolish if they were to all of a sudden say, oh, we don't need E3 anymore. Oh well. Because they're going to be begging for it in a couple of years when it comes time.
Logistically, E3 really needs to sort their shit out, because in the past years where they've tried to open up the convention, it has been way too small. And of course, just with the convention center being way too small, and some of these publishers and developers just not being able to have just a wide enough space to provide a bunch of testing stations for people to play new games and stuff like that. It's one of those things that just kind of has me questioning. It's just like, you know, it doesn't sound like it's a great experience going to E3. So, you know, just they need to get the logistics of that sorted out, because at least from some of the stories that I've read about just how long some of the developer lines have gotten, it just doesn't sound fun. And I think one of the worst stories I had heard and read from some of the sites covering E3 coverage and stuff was you had people who ended up waiting almost the entire day at one booth, and they didn't get to go anywhere else.
Right.
And just the first thought I have thinking on that is, wow, that sounds like an absolutely horrendous experience.
Yeah, imagine wanting to be a part of this big thing that has been hyped up for years, and all of a sudden you only get to do one thing, and not even do that one thing. Like, that's awful. I think this is gonna, like I said before, I think this is gonna lead to E3 probably not being here next year, and either hopefully the industry decides at some point we're just gonna do something for everybody, or we'll just make Summer Games Fest that thing, or they might wait another 2 years and see how that runs out. But it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens at E3 this year. Well, that does it for this episode of Capital Games. It is Wednesday right now. Unless a big story comes out Thursday, we're gonna do the weekly dividend. So we're gonna have that on Friday. Until then, tune in next time where we go to the weekly dividend. I am the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
We'll talk to you next time. Bye. Thank you for checking out Capital Games, where we cover the business side of the video game industry. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you enjoyed the video. You can also subscribe to the podcast if you prefer to have it on your podcast feed. And check us out on our socials and email us if you have a question, comment, or suggestion. Thank you for watching and listening. We'll hear from you next time.